Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, and welcome to yet another episode on the Book Talkies show. Today, I have my colleague Hayo Norman, as a guest speaker, and he would be discussing about his book, which is called List auf Tantra. Who, who Hayo is the official translator for the original book written by a gentleman called as Christopher Wallis, and the name of the book is Tantra Illuminated. Hayo, I think we have just met twice or thrice, but I first of all, welcome to the Book Talkies show, and secondly, you are a very interesting human being. So I would pass over the mic to you and would encourage you not to talk about your professional life or talk less about your professional life, but really share your interest with the audience. So, Hayo, over to you.
This context we talk about here is rather driven by my history and the from when I'm looking back at my whole life, it's really motivated by a little bit of a traumatic start into life, which set me on a certain kind of combination of things, problematic nervous system and some trauma causing things that would culminate into a diagnosis for multiple sclerosis, maybe 11 years ago or something, which kickstarted a process in which I really thought, that's a great kind of being kicked in the ass and really need to do something about healing in general. And maybe that's what I'm really interested in, how to heal from all angles that are available right now. So that would be including a lot of health stuff in the area, what is called now biohacking. I'm very interested in how to heal on mitochondria level, on nervous system level, on the brain, how to look at the brain, looking at the brain a lot, but also from a trauma and trauma healing perspective, because there were more and more books now and experts in the field of modern psychology that would be maybe based on concepts that were driven by the 30s or 40s. Maybe you have heard of C.G. Jung, for example, looking at the psyche. And these kind of, and that's not my first pointer to what I would call a tantric approach, is really a very confirming, positive in terms of looking at the body and its issues and its ways and so forth. A very the absence of any kind of evil, so but really rather looking at your psyche and its processes and its patterns and how to heal those. That's for me maybe the essence of what I would call a tantric approach. Also, when you look at Indian and Christian means to look at the heart and the soul, not really looking at something very above, like not a God far away that you want to reach. You want to not looking at the heavens as a means to being drawn to and try to approach, but rather down to earth. And in this moment, maybe Eckhart Tolle is also in the same kind of sphere, a kind of spirituality, really looking at how to be in this present moment.
So it's really fascinating to know. So while you've just touched briefly upon the fact that there is some enhanced observation power, sort of realization which comes, and then also the fact that there is this is a new way of healing as well, which you have found some healing through this as well. So just if you can sort of touch upon, is this something you really need to go very deep into to be able to understand, or is there something in here which everyone can really benefit from?
Great question. What I'm doing in daily life now is applying certain aspects of it through like just talking to people, and very often people can take something away. Like, for example, one of the key things is really looking at stories and how much they drive us. Just now the conflict in Israel, right? So how much hatred is just cooked up by a story fabricated by somebody else that lends with you, and then you want to create a bubble around you. And you if you really look deep, it's one of the key takeaways I found, and I can translate that to people easily, is even a child like 11-year-old, I just heard the story of a daughter of my cousin who had her beautiful birthday, and at 5 minutes before 12, she wanted to watch a movie and her mother wouldn't allow it, and her mind made it as the end of the world. Like, really, this is so unfair and all that. It's a beautiful example, and that this is the way how we all run all the time, and I run all the time. Looking at how much I'm driven by stories my mind makes up based on patterns created maybe when I was a child or 12 years old or something, like an observer, like a manager. And I really also get a lot from family books, so really seeing that these stories are just fabricated and they are intrinsically not true. Never true. So the more you feel when somebody challenges your story, you feel a deep emotion saying, yes, it's true. You know what I mean? Like the more that happens, the more it's actually not true. So that's a good litmus test for your stories versus a good argument. There's always a good argument. But if something deep, emotionally deep, insists that this is so true, it's always very fishy. And I really like to see that more. And since I see it more and more and more, it's the main process. Getting spiritually free is freeing myself from all those stories. And then there is also something I didn't touch at, is there is the notion of God, but not a Christian kind of God, of creator, but really like a permanent function, creating, sustaining, but also creating illusion. And maybe you heard about the Buddha with his Maya concept of world. In Tantra, it's a little bit different, a little bit more positive. It's not like in Buddhism, there would be the devil being Maya, being the world, seducing him. And in Tantra, it's more like a function of the goddess hiding herself from herself in a way. That's maybe not easy to understand, but it's like, and that's a concept you find also in the Jewish Kabbalah, for example. It's like if you are God and you want to create world and there is no devil, you are everything. So God is everything, and then you in order to be like this bottle of water, you must forget that you are actually God. So it's a function of God to hide herself from being aware of herself, right? And that's beautiful to understand. And then you say, this is how it works. And then there is also her function of being remembering herself, and as you know. So and then you come back to your essence nature, what is again called Buddha nature, or your in Tantra is also like the essence of what you actually are. And then there is a beautiful discovery, and that's not easy to transmit to people. Come back to your question, because it's experiential and there's so many layers of thoughts. It's not easy to access that. Take some practice in meditation to access the awareness of everything is okay.
Just taking a step back, it's very interesting to also know that you have done the German translation of Tantra Illuminated. So just wanted to also understand, how did you get to know the author, Christopher Wallis, and how was that process? And how did you end up actually translating this? Was this after having a lot of interest in this concept that you ended up translating it, or was it while you were reading it that you realized this is something you want to do? And so how did that sort of come into picture? And then we can definitely go back to the book as well, because we have some very passionate but very fundamental questions as well about Tantra and how it sort of impacts the wider world.
Sure. Yeah, there's two books he wrote, and there's Tantra Illuminated and his other books, Recognition Sutra. I listened to mainly at, for example, a long car ride in Thailand, 2 days car ride, and it really inflamed something, and we triggered something. And then I was just following the community loosely, and Christopher Wallis, went to Portugal some years ago, 4 or 5 years ago, I don't know. And I saw the video and I was attracted, and I just went to a retreat 3 years ago, something, and met him there. And he's like a sweet American guy, very geeky, very lovely and in my age and very relatable, so there is no hierarchy, nothing, so I can easily talk to him. And I spent actually I spent a lot of time there at that retreat center and learned to know his community, and it just then was a question who would translate it, and I was just applying to it. And
right, I would want to go back to another yet another interesting word, okay, which is
Yeah.
in Hindi is called as bhakti.
Bhakti, yeah.
Right, I don't know the English translation. Anirudh, do you know what
There's
do we
no-
say?
No,
There's no English.
No, it's
Devotion.
devotion to, but devotion is close. But
Okay.
lots of there's a lot of love, which is not necessarily devotion. My previous teacher Reggie Ray pointed me to Ramakrishna, who is maybe the godfather of devotion and bhakti, and the person who loved his goddess Kali. And then I got so intrigued because it was so beautiful, and I felt so at home with his kind of mindset, that this is then also for me as a consequence being the goddess, also for historical reasons, because I watched the movie Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom when I was 16 years old as my first big movie in theaters, and this kind of weird kind of how she plays, I really enjoy that personally. So exactly when I divorced from Jesus Christ, so there was no notion of a goddess in the movie, but there was a kind of funny kind of remembrance of that. So and then I met and I was exposed to Ramakrishna and read his biography, and I really it's something I can highly recommend to play with. And so
how does your book, List of Tantra or Tantra Illuminated, touch upon this topic, this word bhakti? How does it capture this?
Very interesting, because there is in Shaiva Tantra, which is the philosophy and spirituality that the book is about, there is some bhakti, but a little bit less hot. And there's always, it's really, if you look at modern kind of approaches to awakening from that angle, there could be a more kind of bhakti, devoted, hot kind of emotion to goddess or god, whatever, can be Shiva, then care, and there is this is a little bit of a flavor versus looking at awareness as the main thing again and again and again, like awake to awareness itself, less devoted, less being focused on devotion. So it's a little bit of a fine line that is reflected very often when we are in retreat in this spirituality. Sometimes it's more bhakti, sometimes less bhakti. My teacher is sometimes more, sometimes less. It's a flavor kind of thing also. And you could, So then if you are really into certain kind of Indian bhakti, like in the Ramakrishna mission tradition, you would have much more focus on the Puranas, like the stories around the goddess, so you would learn about her much more, a little bit more. But then in Tantra also you point to that. So if you look at the Tibetan Tantra images of God, it's also about finding true awareness through those very detailed images, right? So if you look at the Tara or like Google those Buddhist gods or Hindu gods, so it's not hard boundaries, I would argue, maybe, but yeah, and I play myself, sometimes more bhakti, sometimes more awareness. So it's
I'm debating on that point, and so the reason that we really went blank in this conversation was, at least for me, this is absolutely new area. Spiritualism, Tantra as a positive term, bhakti, these are very used and abused words back where I come from.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, I need to ask this question because I need to think about this rationally. And let's say if I were to pick up this book, okay, I'm trying to make my mind, okay, what will make me pick this book up is like in our consulting term, right? As is to be, right? What were you? and what have you become now. It becomes very easy for us when we pick up any self-development book, and okay, you were not doing this, now you're doing this. So it's a growth. I know it's a very hard question, Hayo, because it won't you won't be able to probably won't be able to explain this. Okay, I grew up this way, or this is what has happened with me. But what should a reader expect from this book, and what do you think would be that positive change that that they expect from some books like these?
Yeah.
And
What
before you
can
sort
be?
of answer that, Hayo, I want to support Kaustubh's point, but also probably make it a little more easier for you to answer
I-
this question as well. So, my fundamental question is: does spirituality, in a world where we are with so many options in terms of professions, what you can do, out of the possible, there is, at least in my friend circle, in the overall community where I am, if I talk to people, there is that conversation which is actively happening about purpose. What is my purpose? I don't want to do something just for the heck of doing it. If it and it's become a lot more open in terms of this conversation post COVID, because people have realized, oh, I can do this, I can do that, I can do this and that as well. So might as well do something which aligns with my purpose. So if I go back to this book, in the context of this book, does spirituality, does tantric practice actually help you think more clearly, associate yourself with a purpose, which could be one of the things which Kaustubh says, right? As is to be. You are able to now think or identify yourself with a purpose. It could just be spirituality. It could just be bhakti, for that matter.
Yeah.
Just devotion to God could in itself be a purpose. But it could also be outside of that you are now there is heightened awareness, you're able to think better, you're able to do better, and then that is the output which comes from this book. So is that one of the things I'm trying to answer for Kaustubh as well, but I'm also posing a question to you in that.
Yeah. So first of all, you would learn in this kind of spirituality that what you call now purpose might be just a story. Might be just something age-old in you that wants to be, like in my case, lots of purpose is about finding love in a way, and a big part of that would be just dismantled now as it's trying to find love outside, where actually the only way I can really find it is inside. For example, this is a good example for very personal kind of purpose that I would just deconstruct by just investigating and seeing that it's just a story. And a very, very charged story, very, very old charged story from early childhood, right? So there is something to be found that needs to be found, and if I don't find it, my life is a failure, and it's love, and a certain kind of quality of love and stuff like that. And then so this points me to, this is all we talk about, is about freeing myself from patterns and stories that would restrict me. It's called a vikalpa in Sanskrit. It's something that you are a slave of, in a way.
Almost like a slave to an imagined personality that you have, and then you want to try and be a little different from that, but you're not able to, because you have this perspective that this is how I am and this is how I react in these sort of situations.
Yes.
Okay.
And that's how we all are, I would argue. That's how that would so then it's really learning. There is the notion of free more important than even awake. Awake is also a nice word, but let's say enlightened is not a word very popular nowadays anymore. But again, awake meaning awake from a dream, meaning free from my own patterns. All that is very popular in many, many books. Lots of great podcasts at the moment on getting free. And the key thing, maybe to ask both of your questions, is that many of the main thought leaders and teachers in that realm of teaching you how to get free would, if you ask them, many of them are based in exactly Shaiva Tantra. like there are some certain books very popular in this kind of realm. So if you really dig deep, like people, I can name many people who are at the moment spiritual leaders are in that tradition. And the book we talk about is one of the most solid, very in a way also scholar kind of approaches to that. It's really not. That's the thing for me as a sucker for quality. It's not just fabricated by one person living in this, but really by somebody who went for 30-40 years deep into those texts. He is one of the best Sanskrit guys, and really giving you a foundation 1,000 years old. And I love that. For me, that's and many people like that, because it's then something again. I have a big problem with all those kind of esoteric blah blah blah, and also the other side of Tantra is called Neo Tantra and so forth. Lots of esoteric bullshit in a way, and that kind of this book and this kind of Shaiva Tantra as a system of how to look at the world. Is one freeing you from all the problems with Christianity and Western kind of problems, also being driven by problematic kind of thinking about time being very important, what happened in the past being very important, what will happen, and really getting you into this moment, what Eckhart Tolle calls the now. But yeah, so in a way it's more systematic, deeper, philosophical kind of undercurrent below many things you are exposed if you go into modern podcasts and books and so forth.
And this is incredible, Hayo. I mean, I believe you're not just a receiver, because we can sense that this has transformed your life to quite an extent, and you're not just absorbing this, but you're also seeding your skills and maybe growing this, helping this topic reach out to a wider audience. So that's why your translation effort is much appreciated. So thank you for that.
The book Tantra Illuminated is, from all the conversation we've had thus far, there are only upsides of reading this. There is just so much to learn for all of us. And personally for me, learning German and then reading the German translation might be a very difficult task. So I will end up picking up the English version by Christopher Wallis, and hopefully learning a little more about heightened awareness and a little more about spirituality. But It's been a very fun conversation. We absolutely love the passion and all the perspective that you have about tantric practices. Thank you very much for making the time, and it's just been a pleasure having you on the Book Talkies.
Thank you. It was a pleasure being with you, and I wish you all the good luck and success for that podcast. It's fun to listen to it.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Hayo.